because we don't allow that.
All set.
Touch it,
Now
touch
we'll
it.
start.
Oh, what a great
Now
idea.
we're being recorded.
Oh,
As I was saying, Al couldn't be here this week.
Someday
He's
I'm
in
gonna get
Seattle.
Caitlin to do it equipment.
And, Al has very strong interest in transfer station planning, so I told him that we wouldn't, make any decisions without him being present. I doubt we'll be making any decisions anyway today, but, we can, discuss what we've learned over the past month or so, 5, 6 weeks, I guess, regarding, what the county's view is. We did have a brief meeting with Carla Jordan and Regina here a few weeks ago. And they more or less indicated that there wouldn't be a whole lot of guidance coming from the county this fall for whatever reason, November 2nd. And therefore, there's not a whole lot of direction. But one of the things they did point out that they're working on is the differences between transfer station contributions to the landfill and private haulers. There's a total of 107,000 tons comes from Ontario County completely from private haulers and transfer stations. Out of that, 7,000 tons comes from transfer stations. And it seems to me most of the work is going into helping guide transfer stations to the future in some manner through combination, permutations, moving stuff around, who collects what. And the 100,000, 93% roughly, hasn't really been addressed yet. But she assured us that they were going to do that. They were going to look at some mechanisms to put in place so that, if transfer stations go the route of pay as you throw, so would private haulers. But coming up with that guidance and how that all works, that's off in the future sometime. So we really don't know. So that was one of the big takeaways for me. So you guys were there, Caitlin and John.
yeah.
You wanna?
She did say they were putting together a working group of private haulers this fall to kind of start that process. So I think they're trying to do them simultaneously. I think that the transfer stations are a little bit of an easier bite to take, even if it is a smaller bite.
How many private haulers service the
I
county?
think about a dozen,
Dozen.
but they don't all service every municipality.
Right,
A couple of big ones and a bunch of small ones.
Yeah.
It's probably going to hurt the smaller ones. Whatever regulation or rules that are put in place, big guys can adapt in some manner. I mean, they'll just pass along costs. The smaller guys may have, some difficulty doing it. We see some of these smaller guys operating in the town of Canandaigua. I mean, their equipment isn't quite as shiny as the big guys, and but it would be nice. I said that my own belief is that if they could come down with some guidance that affects transfer stations, the municipalities at the same time as the private haulers, at least it's an easier sell to the public. So, because what's going to happen is everybody's going to be paying a little bit more in the future.
So
that's just
we've
the
had
effect of
2
life.
meetings with Carla, one here and then one at the county, and then I know I've talked to a number of town supervisors, and I think they're gonna be hard pressed to come to a consensus, because there's such a difference of opinions among all the towns and what should happen, and there's a lot of the towns that don't want anybody messing with their transfer facility. So they're probably going to, I mean, based on what I keep hearing is, there may be some sort of guidance, but that's probably all it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's like gonna be up to the towns to figure out whatever they need to do.
It's not going to be a hard and fast rule or
No.
local law or something in that respect, but and when that comes, who knows? The question came up, really to Jim and Caitlin, is what do we really need to do now with our transfer station? Al has laid out, kind of a reprint from what we took many years ago when we were looking at doing this building and the whole town campus here. And it's really kind of an update from that, you know, reflecting the need to have scale so you can get into a pay-as-you-throw type operation. You know, and he's published that to us, but, you know, at this point, it's kind of, since it is still murky, I couldn't recommend we go ahead with anything like that. However, there are some things that Jim has pointed out that would be helpful, and those we probably should entertain. So,
As far as more hours or as far as equipment,
well, hours, equipment, both. I mean, that's a,
we would need preferably more hours during the week, not just the weekends. And probably 2 lanes, but have recycling and compaction of solid waste, and another spot for your C and D to avoid the mass 4 to 6 wide of vehicles and be forced to wait your turn to get up to your spot. And also, we've talked about some sort of a radio RF tag to be put on your windshield of some sort to be able to open a gate to get in that says you're a resident. You know, we've also talked about maybe putting in some sort of a, if we go to pay as you throw, some sort of a scale system to pay for your trash to be thrown. As in 6 years from now, they're supposed to close, is what they say. If there is a potential for another cell, but they would have to go out to bid to see who would operate that. And Seneca Meadows is supposed to be closing sometime in 4 years.
Well, the other thing that we learned though from those meetings
Yeah.
was the liability piece.
Right.
So the chance of that happening, of it staying open past 28 is pretty unlikely.
Unlikely.
yeah, the, Carl pointed out that the arrangement, the deal with Casella, when they made that, Casella agreed to take on complete liability for that site. Anything that happens there or has happened in the past. So when the landfill was originally opened, the rules were different than they are now. So some of the initial materials that were put in there weren't put in the same manner, protected in the same manner as now. So Casella agreed that if in the future there was any issue, any problem, any violation that arose from the day that thing started until then, they would take responsibility for it. So with that, as Doug said, 2028, when the deal is over with Casella, if Casella walks away, and the county said, well, there's still a little bit of room there, we could go out and operate that ourselves for just Ontario County, then that liability thing goes away. Casella walks. The county's probably going to be reluctant to do something like that. I would too. But that doesn't preclude making a deal with Casella that you could extend the life for just Ontario County. But she estimated that period of time be maybe 15 to 20 years, just based on what the county generates and the amount of space available out there. So, but there would be, that period of time. So,
But our cost would go up significantly because they have to pay for just those residents using it.
yeah, it's just Ontario
Yeah.
County, not the.
Currently, we don't pay for recycling, which we probably will in the future. And our municipal solid waste is dirt cheap versus what normally gets paid there by about $40 a ton difference.
She wouldn't give us a strict number. She
Right.
said it depended on where it was coming from and
Oh,
the
that's
amount. So she really wouldn't even give me a ballpark, but I know from talking to some municipalities downstate in Orange County, they're paying like $160 a ton, and we're paying $35.
To get rid of trash. So it's a big difference.
I think you really have two issues. So you have there's a short-term issue, but then that longer-term issue is the stuff that you're talking about, whether or not you construct a new facility and all those types of things. I think you have a short-term issue, truthfully, what I see using the transfer station, and that's people that are not town of Canandaigua town residents using the facility. We're basically subsidizing the whole county right now. I know last time, I take a picture, I was sitting behind a car with Florida plates, and it was clearly their first time here. And I could tell they pulled a full paint can out of the car, because the guy was having trouble, and threw it in the trash, and the car was full, and they were throwing stuff, and they didn't know where to go and everything else. And then I left here and I went down into the city, actually I went to Burn Dairy, and as I was going past there, I saw 2 vehicles coming out of the city, all loaded up, coming up here. No orange tag in the window or anything else. But on the other hand, I don't think it's realistic to ask our employees to do, I mean, that becomes a huge headache. I had even mentioned to Terry, I said, what if, at least as a starting point, we had the town board consider a fee or maybe even a code change for violation of using unauthorized use of the transfer facility? That when we do find those, we could at least go after them and start, or, you know, the other thing is, even just back here, maybe we work with the city police or the county to have license plate readers where we can spot check when we see stuff. And I mean, there's, without a whole big, huge revamp of the transfer facility, just to curb some of that unauthorized use. You know, just throw it out there as an idea, but.
I know Todd, I was talking with Todd last weekend out here for a while about what he's experiencing, and I had a tag hanging, it was in my truck, I had an orange tag hanging there. He said, you know, one thing you gotta get rid of is those tags. I said, why is that? I said, it's a very visible thing, you can tell. He said, yeah, but he said, I've had to shag a bunch of people out of here that were city residents, but somebody in town loaned them their tag, and they turned it around so you can't see the plate number. And he said, whenever I see a tag turned around, if I have the time, I ask him if I can see the tag. He said, but a number of times that plate didn't match what was on the vehicle. So he said that tag is, you know, he said, yeah, it's visible, but he said, people can hand those off, and he said, we don't have time to look at what's written on there and look at the plate and compare the two. So some other mechanism, as Doug is saying, you know, some kind of a plate reader or you know, a RFID chip, you know, putting a gate in, though, I think is going to, we'll have traffic backed up into the city. So I don't know. You know, you go back to April, May of last year when we had, you know, all the restrictions in place from the COVID, from the pandemic. You know, we had some lanes outlined out there, and we had, all the guys were doing that work mostly. We had the 2 teams set up, and people lived with that, you know, and they, you know, I mean, frequently there were, you know, a line there, you know, as there normally is, but, you know, people lived with that, so necking it down into a few lanes like you suggest, that's, you know, people, and really the other thing, expanded hours, I think that's really something that is, I mean, we kind of force that to happen by, you know, being open 4-hour chunks of time, 3 times a week, and that just forces people to come at those times. If we were open longer, or I don't know what the right hours are. I mean, more nights or all day Saturday, some schedule. I that more, you guys know more about that than I certainly. So, but you'd mentioned also one time, Jim, you thought our recycling compactor isn't large enough to, because the volume has gone up over time. I mean, it's kind of plateaued, but it has gone up. But I mean, that recycling compactor's been there for,
We've had for what, 8, 9 years
you know,
now?
I mean, that,
Yeah.
you know, we have seen quite an increase in numbers of use. Some can't even show that.
And the other, and there's that, but it's also, we can ship cardboard up to Yee.
That's
You know,
what I was
we get
gonna
these
say.
huge boxes that just don't like to go down in there.
Yeah.
You know,
Is
Well,
there
people
something else
don't
we should be doing
flatten
with that, with cardboard? I mean, like, even myself, I came over Wednesday night with a truckload of cardboard that had gathered
Also,
in the house.
Amazon.
Yeah, pretty much,
Yeah,
yes.
Small
Yeah.
houses, yeah.
Yeah. But is there something else we should be doing with cardboard or could do with cardboard?
Well, you could like buy a baler, do it separate and bale it and keep it dry someplace.
You have to have an outlet for it, someone who's
Yes,
gonna
as
buy
well.
it.
You know, because there is a value to it, but we would have to invest. Or you look at Casella and say, do you wanna collect here and set something up? You know, maybe you partner with somebody, but, where they don't do it is the thing.
Well, and that was my takeaway from the meeting with the county, is they're not gonna tell us what to do. They may make suggestions, but they're there more as a support mechanism. So they wanna serve as, you know, if we decide we don't wanna haul anymore, or we want somebody to maintain our containers, or, you know, whatever sort of aspects of, running the transfer station that we would like assistance with, we can let them know, and then they say, okay, the town of Victory doesn't wanna haul anymore. So then they put together some sort of bid and bid out hauling for the town, so that was my takeaway from those meetings, is that they're there more to support us in whatever decision we
Advisory.
may make, and kind of help to, you know, consolidate some of those things. We can get a better rate for hauling if multiple towns are putting together a larger, kind of contract. So that was my takeaway. And the other thing I wanted to say too is, you know, we definitely have long-term problems on the horizon and then shorter-term issues. But I think that with looking at a new transfer station, if we're looking at a system similar to what Manchester has, where you have to have a card to open, to put your trash in, we don't necessarily need to start charging our residents immediately. We can, you know, say the first year it's unlimited, and maybe year 3 you get X amount of dollars, and after that you start having to pay. We can phase something in. But by having that card, we can limit it to just our residents. So it's kind of, the infrastructure put in is gonna help us weed out, you know, people from other municipalities from using the facility. But then it's also gonna give us a mechanism where we can phase in pay as you throw over a long period of time. So it's not all of a sudden 6 years from now, our costs are doubling, tripling, and our residents are having to, you know, take that on. We can sort of start phasing in some of those policies over time.
It's,
The card thing is okay, but it goes right back to the orange tag.
I was just gonna say,
You know, like, you know, that's the
Yeah.
hard part. So what you're saying is a good starting point for discussion, like, was that, I'm not even thinking about that orange tag passed around. I should have,
The only thing is if you're paying for it, you're not gonna give somebody your card,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
just like a credit card.
so.
yeah, if you have to purchase the card.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of flexibility in a system like that is gonna make us much more resilient to adapt to these uncertain conditions in the future.
Well, you know, even, putting an RFID chip in the window of a pickup truck or a car, I could borrow your truck and bring my stuff over, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
do the same thing.
there isn't any foolproof system really, but those systems would tend to weed out,
Yeah.
at least
Some of
reduce the, you know.
The only thing that you can do to get everybody is pay as you throw. Like regardless of where you live, you show up here,
Yes, pay.
you
Somebody's
get,
gotta pay.
somebody's gonna pay. I mean, that's, can't see.
Couple that with retinal scan.
Okay.
Why-
But I just say, Terry's kind of, you know,
And
Yeah.
maybe that's something we can explore, you know, if we put in a system like that, maybe, you know, town residents get a different rate than residents from outside of the town. You know, maybe town residents pay, you know, 10 cents a pound, and city and whatever other municipalities pay 15 cents a pound. You know, we can really adapt that system, and, you know, maybe the first couple years it's just town residents and city residents, and then we expand it to say, okay, this system is running smoothly, maybe we can expand it to other municipalities as well.
What that says is build a new facility now.
Why can't you use something like the car washes use?
that's what we, kind
That's
of,
what they are.
we talked about radio frequency tags, we thought about that, Terry.
But somebody can borrow that car from you too.
Let me ask you this though, at what point in time do we really seriously, I mean, talk about like
Yeah.
a cost analysis too? I mean, I know we jokingly said maybe we do away with the transfer facility, but if we can contract with a hauler that comes to everybody's house, I mean, is that, I'm just saying, maybe that's not cost effective, or maybe it is, but maybe it's something we should look at.
We talked about that.
That's Jim's ideal.
Yeah.
Alright, I was like, maybe
We can
there's
give
an
you the
offset
same, right?
cost. We've talked about it, we've talked about a lot of stuff, so.
Right.
I would have a hard time thinking that that would be cost effective because of that, how many town residents are using private haulers already. We would have to provide that service for all of our town residents.
But if
And you
we
get
can
It's
get a
definitely-
bulk discount.
You become kind of like the city then, though.
Right, but not
I
if
mean-
we operated. What I'm saying is
Well,
if
so
we
yeah.
could get a bulk discount for a contract, so anybody that chooses to opt into that gets it for X number of dollars with a private hauler.
And I guess one of the questions that come to mind right away is, when I come over here on the weekend, the amount of stuff I
Oh,
see
yeah.
people throwing away would not fit in one of those,
And then what about
I-
things like electronics and construction debris and scrap metal?
You need an eco park or something
Yeah.
like that to deal with that, and then, and if it doesn't exist in your county,
Right.
that's a problem.
then you start.
Well, and that's what the county had even said in the meeting, because they were talking about the spoke and hub model with us being the hub with that type of thing. There's a lot to figure out with this.
And the
Sure.
clock
How do we-
is ticking.
How do we go about it, though? You know, I mean, we sit here and talk about it every month. We've been doing that for, I don't know, a few years. I mean, there's some short-term things we could do to maybe alleviate some of the pressure to expand hours, you know, at least that might reduce, you know, some of the pressure on the guys out here. And maybe give them a little more time to sort out who's who, but,
With expanded hours,
Other
we
than that-
have to get probably 2 more solid waste containers. And the reason I say that is they're full, after the weekend, we have to haul them just to get ready for Wednesday. So we'd have to have additional storage so we can haul and actually operate at the same time.
I feel like $8,000 a piece or something.
And that's for an open top, and more like, I guess, after 18 now.
Oh.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
And staffing is a major
Yeah.
issue for us. Lindsay was just in my office this morning. We were talking about, we have open positions at the transfer station that we can't fill right now.
That's a major problem for everybody, including us in all of our departments.
And right now, the positions we have filled are by high school students. So if we're looking at expanding hours,
well, maybe we should have a full-time operator, somebody that's 40 hours a week, full-time employee that, you know, works those hours, but is there by themselves for some limited.
Kind of got that
Capacity.
now with Todd. I mean, he comes in
Yeah.
first thing Wednesday morning to haul things to get ready for Wednesday night, and hauls everything again Thursday to get ready for Saturday, Sunday.
Other than snow plowing, that's pretty much,
That's, yeah,
What he
that's all
does,
he
right,
does,
so,
right,
yeah.
yeah, that's all he does, so.
I found out it's the difference between day and night coming over on Wednesday as it is on the weekend. I've always come during the weekend. And one time I came on Wednesday night and there wasn't hardly anybody there,
Right.
so you just sailed through, so I always come on Wednesday nights now.
yeah.
But that's what time.
it depends on the
Yeah.
time. I was here Wednesday night and I
What
had to
time?
wait.
You come at 4 o'clock.
It was, no, I was here about 6:30,
But
actually,
I
6:30.
was 6 o'clock last week. I was the only car, but while I was there, there's 3 other cars came.
There were 4 lanes, I believe, around 6:30 Wednesday night, and I know I was the 4th vehicle in line, cause I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I'm not coming on Wednesday night this time anymore.
It's really hit or miss too, there's sort of all of a sudden, there's a bunch and then it clears out
Oh,
and,
yeah, the accordion.
yeah, absolutely.
Would another full-time person help or not?
I know about,
If we're looking at expanded hours, I think it would.
yeah, cause we have to ask to be here to attend the transfer station permit, so we have to look at that. And it also would help, with having somebody here when we have issues with our part-time people not being here. It's, we have one great part-time guy, the problem is he has issues with his handicapped son, has a hard time finding somebody to watch him. So,
Well, you said just a few minutes ago that we're having a hard time finding part-time people.
right,
People do like full-time jobs, some people.
right.
I think that would be certain fields.
It's more attractive.
Yeah.
We do have
Yeah.
challenges even with full-time, but it's
Yeah.
definitely easier to fill a full-time position than a part-time.
Well, you have
position.
benefits, I mean, that's
Well,
maybe that's what
and Lindsay and I were talking this morning, she has somebody who is a part-time worker seasonal for parks, who she was saying maybe would be interested in transitioning to working at the transfer station. But it's a significant, it's like a $4 an hour pay cut to come and work at the transfer station, part-time versus working for the parks.
Right.
So there, there's that little piece to the puzzle as well.
It's true.
that can be fixed easily. Then.
I can,
I mean, as long as the board agrees,
Right.
Right.
it can be fixed easily. But I mean, that's something we have control over, whereas there's so many facets of this thing we don't have control over. So.
Why don't I suggest that we add to the budget, the 22 budget, one full-time person, that way the town board can consider that and debate it and stuff. I think there's a note on it, I can't read it from here, but.
I'm thinking of Cheshire Fire Barbecue. Someone stands at gate area checking tags. We could do that position randomly at first, so they don't know what week they would be there.
well, we've done that before, Adeline, and,
You can do it, Adeline.
after about an hour, get my ash read, I'm done.
Hasn't gone over very well.
It's difficult with the number of cars as well. There's just so much traffic. How many people were out there when you and Jean and
There
Rebecca
was
and
about
I?
8 of us.
There was like 4 people just checking tags, and then a couple of people signing up for permits, and we had traffic backed up all the way to 5 and 20, didn't we?
Yeah. So,
And there was quite a bit of verbal abuse towards anybody
towards
checking
anybody
tags.
checking tags.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how your RFID thing is going to work either then. I mean, if you're worried about the backup, but I think it's a good idea.
Well, it is. It's just the mechanics of it, Adeline, and how,
Exactly.
like the car wash thing, when you go in there and you buy the annual or monthly, the gate opens and let you in, but when you got 60 cars trying to get in at once, and the expectation of our residents is that you can come in here and make it 10 lanes wide, you can dump your stuff in there and get out of here in 2 minutes. I mean, we have that to contend with too, but whatever we do in the future, it's gonna be slower to get through than what it is now, and it's gonna be more expensive. So the only way to really maybe assuage some of the hard feelings would be to expand the hours so you can reduce some of that to facilitate, that passage through. I mean, it's a funny thing. Some people want to come in here and just dump the stuff and get out as quick as they can. Other people want to stand out there jaw jacking with people they haven't seen in 6 months. I mean, it's
It's almost like you need a fast lane and a slow lane.
yeah. Well, the original
Social.
design, when we were designing this building, the new transfer facility, we had an area for people to pull off and talk. We were gonna put a pavilion type, just a cover over it so people could sit and talk if they wanted to do it for a few minutes and, then pull out, but, well, other than maybe adding a full-time person, I don't know if we've come to
Well, how
Any other-
serious, Doug, are you about doing a cost analysis of curbside versus?
I think we could seriously do that. I mean, it's staff time, obviously. A couple of us can work on that and put something together, but yeah, I think that's definitely something that we could be doing. I think that, Terry, I'll just say to you, it's up to you and the town board if you wanna, revisit our town code relative to the unauthorized use to really try to get some attention, and maybe there's some additional signage or something, you know, unauthorized use type thing to kind of get people's attention.
You would need signage to
Yeah.
pitch people.
Right.
Because people come in and say, I saw everybody else coming in with trash, so I
Right.
figured I could.
And
But
then
if you have a sign,
enforcement-
unauthorized
enforcement
vehicles,
issue.
There's the enforcement issue, yes, and so that would be kind of like the second phase of it, right? But at least you'd be able to, hey, we're getting serious about this and kind of phase it in. And then whether or not you do readers or people, or maybe maybe code enforcement periodically, we stand out here and do it. It's tough.
We had talked about, you know, the RFID thing with the, you know, the gantry type thing that Thruway has now with the readers, you know, you don't have the chip, the light goes off and they're all pointing at that car. You know, so this guy doesn't belong here, you know. I mean, that we get that out of the picture, but that, we have no idea what percentage of people dump here illegally, or,
Right.
you know, that aren't town residents, I should say.
The one thing I did, I have a normal meeting with the city manager about a variety of different things, and I said, hey, don't your cars have license plate readers? And he said, yes. Or the sheriff's cars do, and he said that I think one of theirs did, and that they were looking to add more. And I said, would it be possible for us to have a car just parked, because they're mounted on the car, to read even just periodically without installing anything? And he's like, yeah, we can work something out with all that kind of stuff. So even if we did something like that, so they could start to get around, hey, they're spot checking.
Just
Just
program in the
alerts.
links that we've recorded from.
Yeah, so it would have to
Yeah.
capture all the license plate data, and then I guess it's, from what I understand, it's some sort of like, I don't know if it's an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, and then we did take a little extra time, but, you know, we could do some sort of spot check like that, and then at least send a notification, maybe it's maybe it's a notice or a warning type thing on authorized use at first.
Right.
Well, that thing about signage, though, and putting a sign up,
Yeah.
we did that recently on the metal bin where people were taking metal out to sell themselves. You know, I don't know if that stopped it or not,
It's helped.
you know, but, you know, signage like that says, you know, I mean, coupled with, if we made a code change that, you know, a fine for unauthorized use. I mean, that's something that we could, town board could do it. Wouldn't think anyone would have an objection to that.
essentially thefts of service is
Right.
what they're doing
Yeah.
by dumping it here without paying.
Yeah, the sign that says that, unauthorized use is theft of service, and you will be fined. Put that out there so that people see it.
Would you put it out there, or would you put it by the gate so they don't?
No, they don't even pay attention to that on the way in here. They're just.
You get 2 gates.
We're getting in line and stuff, they're
That's
thinking
it.
about.
So,
We can put sandwich boards out, we can put the electric sign up.
yeah,
So we got plenty of places we can plaster signs and
Right.
put things in the newsletter. We can have a table of flyers.
I think step one, if we're gonna do something like that, we've really gotta look at the code to make sure that there's something there. And then the town board would have to decide that, and then if the town board wants to establish a fee, right, for unauthorized use, so. So those are a couple town board actions.
I don't
Bring
think
it up Monday night.
there's stuff about littering, but it's not necessarily
I don't
directed
think it's
towards,
spelled out.
it's
you
not
know.
directed towards a transfer station, so.
Well, this would be specific. I think the signage would have to have, in parentheses, the local law that
Right.
you're referring to. I think it's the only way the judge could issue a fine
Right.
or uphold a fine anyway. Has the county thought of any other options regarding disposal ultimately, other than a couple more years at the landfill by themselves? I mean, that's one of the big things. We gotta know where this stuff's going. Because
They-
if it's gonna go over Hill and Dale, then you're
I-
talking a lot of transfer equipment.
They spoke briefly about the possibility of like a regional transfer station. So, something that maybe on or near the landfill site, so basically we would collect it here, still haul it
To the regional.
to the regional, and then they put it on tractor trailers and haul it to a facility.
Is this facility permitted in any way by the DEC? It's not.
Our
a facility?
transfer
Yeah.
station?
Yeah, it
Oh, it
is.
is.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's,
so you
yeah.
have a permit.
It's the 360 permit, is the 360 regulations are all related to waste
And
disposal.
what does that allow you to do and not to do? Anything?
When we take municipal solid waste, C and D, we collect waste oil and recycling electronics. That's all we can do.
Metal.
Oh, metal, thank you.
They,
Has to be containerized, I guess.
yeah, it has to be containerized, they have to be covered, you know, your containers, can't be just out in the open, nothing can sit on site for more than 7 days.
Okay.
There's,
So it is permitted
Yeah.
and regulated. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to make
it's
sure
a
that,
5-year permit.
Yes, 5 years, annual report
And an
each
annual
year that we
report,
give to
yeah.
the top board for approval. Once in a while they come out and check on things, but, you know, we're not permitted for household hazardous waste, tires. What else?
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, so basically when you fill out the permit, you say, okay, DEC, this is what we're gonna collect. And you can only collect what you've said you wanna collect. Now, if all of a sudden we decided, oh, we wanna start collecting tires, we would have to reapply for our permit to expand to collect tires.
Remember that going forward, I guess. Okay.
The thing about the compactor we use for recycling, if we were to get something that was bigger, would it fit?
Yeah, because it'd be the same bins we use now, it'd just could be deeper or wider, Terry. It's just be a matter of cutting out some steel that's existing now, covering it and sliding it in place and bolting it back in place.
Because one of the things I've noticed over the years is that all the cardboard and everything that people don't collapse. It goes in there, but very quickly that chamber fills up.
Yeah,
And the guys
bridges.
are poking it with,
Mhm.
one 2x4 trying to mash it down so that it can be compacted, and that backs up
Right.
everything until they can get that, so if there's a bigger mouth, or if you get people to fold the stuff flat, to
Mhm.
cut the boxes and just fold them down, it'd be easier for guys to handle and to just an observation, I don't know,
Yeah, usually with curbside collection, they try and encourage residents to
Yeah.
flat.
right?
Because
And
now
they-
you're talking about factor body and even more difficult than trying to put it in a hopper at a transfer station.
I've definitely done public outreach about that, it's
Oh,
a tough
flattening?
one,
Yeah,
Oh,
it is.
I don't flat every box either.
But people just, some of these boxes, they fill with it.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason they flatten is get it here.
Right.
So you get in your car, once it's here. they don't care.
But a larger compactor would help, in the short term here, it could be reused in
A
the future.
deeper, it's not very deep, so when you start getting a lot of boxes, it fills quickly, and it bridges,
Yeah.
so.
But we're also like, all of our recycling goes in that, whether it's glass, whether it's cardboard, whatever. Like, let's just go back to that cardboard thing, and I guess it's top of mind for me, because I literally just brought a pickup truckload of cardboard over it. If cardboard was separate, could we get more volume by just packing the cardboard in versus the glass and the plastic and everything mixed in?
I think we get more, maybe get more volume. You're talking like a separate packer just for cardboard. Problem is that we don't have the room underneath the roof to put another packer. We have to add on.
and
So-
people are so used to single stream, I think it would be really hard to get that.
Right now, you're 3 hoppers, right? You always have one out of service.
Oh, we try to go back and forth with 2 municipal solid waste.
And
Yeah.
inevitably, one of them breaks for one reason or another,
And then there's only
at
one,
least once a month.
one for
Okay. So you have had,
recycling.
you've had operation issues.
Yeah.
Trash.
If we did that separately with cardboard, would they accept that? We send everything commingled, and then they do the
Right.
sorting out there. They get rid of everything, but if you supply the county with, or Casella with compacted cardboard, would they accept that? Or
Sure.
would they,
They might pay you for it.
they wouldn't have any problem with
I don't
doing
see
that.
why not, we did part of their job for them.
Doesn't like
Cardboard has.
Tops and Wegmans do that?
No, oh yeah, all your
I thought all
commercial.
the-
The
Yeah,
bale
Ollie's.
liners.
I mean, they're all doing separate, usually bales.
Yep.
But they have separate piles for just cardboard, and they have value, those piles.
Yeah,
And
if
then
you have to
sometimes
store it,
One of
actually-
the more valuable materials in the recycling industry.
when I worked for a living, we had a lot of our materials came in cardboard. We had Valor, we did that, but we had to find places to get rid of the cardboard.
Right.
We had warehouses where we could store the stuff until we found the market for it, and then we'd move it out, so. You know, I mean, if we're doing that, we have to be able to store it safely so it doesn't get wet. and all that.
Well, being inside a closed container, it's just get it down, you know, take it down to the land, the MRF and just drop it off. And they may, you can ask Bob, I don't see any problem with bringing it down there, it's already separated.
But that would necessitate a bigger building.
And let's say bigger buildings, we gotta
If
cover,
we're talking about a bigger building, then.
right? And they may anticipate, a larger electric service going over there to operate another three-phase motor. So, we may have capacity, we may not, I don't know without, we have to run the numbers. Have somebody see what size wire we have out there.
But if we could take that out of the stream and then maybe that becomes revenue, I mean, that's the type of thing we'd have to look at with the cost analysis, right?
Mhm.
But if instead of the cost, if we could turn that into a revenue by selling that.
Selling it ourselves?
Yeah,
or
get
even
some
to the-
for it, it's already separated.
Trying to find a market for it?
Or even to
Sell
Casella
it.
ourselves.
Yeah, I wouldn't get into us trying to market this.
So you're probably looking at $30 a ton for commingled material at some point in the near future. And if you pull the cardboard out, you could probably get paid $10-15 a ton for the cardboard. So, and then actually get your commingled price, go the other way, because you're pulling some valuable material. But it saves them having the process,
Process, right?
okay? So, yeah.
And it could save us money in the long term once we have to haul it further to have that separated out.
Yeah, because you're paying $35 to get rid of cardboard that's mixed with other.
Right.
Here you've separated, you've reduced your weight and volume of commingled by taking the cardboard
Well,
out.
that's a question to ask yourself, what would they do? What would their response be if we said, hey, we could do this
But to
here?
your point, Terry, that might need to be part of the whole conversation
Yeah.
with the longer term, what with the new transfer
Yeah.
facility, and what that
Do you-
looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
separate.
what is the market of commingled material in the future?
I know the town of Naples transfer station, they separate cardboard and bale it, but that's run by a third party,
Hmm.
not the town.
Yeah, big area for that transfer station in Naples.
It's a small building, but they got stuff all over it.
Yeah.
It's not up to 360 regulations.
We do lots of things if you don't follow the regulations, so. Well, there's a bunch of ideas here, and we're probably not done talking about it yet, but we do have some
No,
other
but-
topics on the agenda here, so.
But you love talking trash.
So in the short term, are we working on a cost analysis? Is that something we need town board direction to do, Doug? Is that
Well,
something?
We
yeah.
don't need town board, if that's what, if the planning and public works committee is asking us to do it, we'll start working on it, and then we can come back here with that.
And then if we can cross that off our list, we can seriously start moving forward with a new transfer station.
No, it's gonna be up to the town board ultimately, obviously, with that, but
Yeah.
we at least get that, the cost analysis, and then we start to have a plan for expense.
Expense.
Since we're in budgeting season, should we also consider a larger recycling compactor for next year?
I put a bin in, I didn't put a packer in, so I would have to call and I just go through Sourcewell, because they're already done the bidding for us, so and find out some more information from Galbraith.
Ask them if they have something unique to cardboard. I mean, it's probably a bigger hopper and it's a different type of compaction unit. I've seen those and I think, you can ask that it would be specific to cardboard.
Talk to SimCon too, they're the ones who rep Galbraith, so
Yeah.
see what they say.
Anything we do, we should also keep in mind that, well, it would be portable. I mean, if we build a bigger place, everything just moves over, so. But if that would help, we ought to consider it for next year, so.
I will see what kind of numbers I can get.
Okay. Let's move on to Greg.
Hey.
Sanitary sewer discussion on County Road 28.
What you got here, Greg?
Alright, so, this is basically that PDF that, I sent out prior to the last meeting. Basically just looking at the, potential future development that might potentially contribute to, our proposed, district, I guess, or area, on County Road 28. And, what they did is they looked at, probably the most, aggressive development potential that's allowable through the town code, which I'm not entirely sure if the form-based code also impacts this area or not, but
It does, and it's not, it would be significantly more than the numbers I'm seeing, at least for portions of this.
right. So, obviously the number of EDUs that are in this district for existing flows would be X, and then what you'd have for potential future, just looking at development of the vacant parcels that are either inside the district, or they at least have frontage to allow a connection point to the sewer.
Which of these are added to what we, that,
I think you said the answer.
yeah. I mean, the original was, what, around 90 some? units?
Yep.
But which, was it these two?
You have, each of these leadered areas are basically pointing out vacant parcels and potential add density for. And you can see that there's three probably significantly larger
Oh,
parcels
yeah,
that
but
could add additional, like, large numbers of
yeah,
units.
but are all of these in addition to what we have been talking about?
These would be future. So it's like, so when you size a pump station, you have to plan for existing flows, which is, assuming everybody connects. And then if there's
Yeah, and
planned development beyond that.
Yeah.
Or allowed development beyond that.
where,
The
where,
county wants.
where's the original number that we were talking about?
Yep,
Not any of these?
that's not any of those.
Okay, so that was around 90.
Yeah, it was right around 90. So this would,
Okay, so it's these units up here that, don't have an arrow pointing to.
right, yeah, it's all the other parcels that are there. But those were, we specifically excluded developed parcels.
Okay.
So this is really basically parcels that are largely undeveloped for potential added flow.
But you're including, like, these parcels, right, like the green and stuff, that
They're-
would all come
they're
over here to
outside.
the pump station, right?
No, they're outside.
Okay, so it's just
It's just,
inside the red
yeah,
line.
if you have a parcel
Okay.
or frontage that crosses, it's inside that red line,
Mhm.
that's where we're kind of like, you're kind of like trying to account for them. There is a little bit of a what if scenario here. And, I do think in some of the cases that I think their density is actually generous based on some of the environmental factors that would be on a couple of those sites. Like the one here, we have 91 houses, whatever. I know there's some wetlands in that area that might potentially impact its overall units. But the big takeaway is that you're going from like 90 units and then you're adding in like, 250 units. So it would be, potentially 2.5 times the size. The reason why that impacts anything is it impacts, the size of the pump station, potentially the force main.
But if we're also talking about this Cook Uptown
It's
landing.
not in, that's what I'm just looking at, so if he's talking about only the properties inside the red line, the only parcel that would be rezoned form-based code is the dark blue one that's already in UO, that's already been
Yeah, it's good.
developed.
This one?
Yeah,
That's good.
that's the only one, all the rest of them are outside the form-based code.
Right, and they were probably outside, and so this red line was developed from, you know, again, from the sewer master plan, from our last meeting. It does not include the form-based code, I guess, concepts or an expansion there too.
So that's okay,
Okay.
because it doesn't, I'm looking at the form-based code map and comparing, the only one I see just quickly looking at it is this dark blue one right here.
But we are talking about that Uptown Landing project, which would put a burden on this system.
No, because it goes over here to the pump station,
Oh, okay,
so it wouldn't be in
We're
this,
trying to avoid that pump station.
okay.
you know.
So, well, is that pump station capable? It's not
Yeah,
just discussion, but
it is, that's the one that we for years pressured the county into upgrading the force main and all that stuff, so they'll probably have to upgrade the pumps, but the force main itself is capable of
They
handling
made the
it.
main enforcement bigger.
Yeah,
Right.
they made it 12
Yeah,
inch.
but I'm not sure about the pumps. They ever do that?
I don't think they switched the
They-
pumps. I
They
think
did
They
for,
did.
for Centerpoint, the 109 townhomes, they
Yeah.
had to do something with one of the pumps, I think, that they
Okay.
made them do. But they've said, as you add more, the developer's gonna have to make upgrades to the
Okay.
pumps themselves, but they did the force main.
Okay, I remember enforcement.
these white things here, I mean, you said that these numbers are all within the red line,
Right,
but this thing ends right here. Is it
yeah, but
this
you're
parcel
catching,
or is it?
you're catching it over here, you're catching part of that parcel inside here, part of it inside here, so.
So these
Again,
ends
if you
one
gotta
of
think
them-
about like a water,
they're
of a
outside.
water district that, you know, if I, you have a legal service, you know, because they would be, you know, they would have property within the district.
But these are scattered through this parcel here.
Right. I mean, when you officially draw this district, you know, obviously, we can draw this a little bit differently. I mean, this was, again, was put together from the master plan.
And this is just a thing that the county has to see what the potential would be,
Right.
make
They're
themselves
trying
feel
to-
comfortable with.
Right, they're just trying to gauge, because the county doesn't have any standards on what the pump station is. They're gonna have opinions, and they're gonna have comments and all that good stuff, but I've been trying to push them towards having some sort of standards for a pump station, because it's hard to estimate for what essentially is, it's an unknown quantity.
Mhm.
When we did the pump station for, Outhouse, working with the county, it was originally, I think that was gonna be like a simple J-series, pump station, like a, Gorman Rupp style, small hut, you know, and then the county's like, well, no, we want the generator inside. And no, we want, you know, it was like added this, added that, and they kind of morphed into something else. I'm just trying to get better definition for them, so, you know, is the pump station a $300,000 ticket, or is it $500,000 ticket? I don't know. So these are the bits of information they're gonna wanna know to basically say, okay, yeah, it's gotta have this, and this. It also dictates the size of the force main, because if you're going from, you know, 100 units to roughly 400 units, that's probably a 6-inch force main at that point in time, instead of a 4-inch.
But Greg, you're suggesting, so I just added up, there'd be 50 new houses potentially inside the red line, if you're just talking about inside the red line. Because these 91, the 14, and this 20 or 76 would all be outside the red line.
But they have legal access to the sewer because they have frontage too.
So those could all be
So
added.
those could be added in. I mean, they might have to make their own improvements, Doug, to go ahead and get the water, like, if the grade drops off, they might have to have their own pump station, to get it to us, but in theory, they have a connection.
Mhm.
So we can't deny them, a connection.
Gotcha.
What if the parcels were subdivided? If the parcel, if the subdivision was outside of that red line, would they still be able to access?
So if, right, so if someone subdivided off the parcel and they say they followed our district line, and we had a parcel that's entirely out of the district, then no.
Okay.
They would be out of this, then
As
they
long
would,
as they
then they
have
would
the
need to
little-
basically do a, you know, they would need to do a sewer district extension, on their own.
So that's 181 potential addition to the 50 that are definitely in for maybe 231 new.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yes, I was just talking rough numbers. It was like 100 to initial 250, which, takes you to that 350 range. Like I said,
And you said there's about 100 currently there?
there's about 100 existing. 100 existing units is definitely a 4-inch force. You're looking at probably a pump station that's only going to really run at about 100 gallons a minute. When you get into the 350 range, you're probably teetering off where a 4-inch force main would make sense because of the head requirements to discharge. So that might kick you into the 6, but you're probably pumping closer to 200 range.
And where are you still planning to go in and tie in off of Parkside Drive? Where are you tying into? Are you coming down?
Yeah, so there was a couple different scenarios that were evaluated, well, not really evaluated, at least contemplated in the sewer master plan. Yeah, one of them was Parkside, and I think there's a connect further down through here, and I think that comes back to whatever the county's gonna ask us to do as part of our process to move forward with the district. They haven't necessarily said that they're gonna require a flow study. I'm guessing they're probably gonna ask for a flow study. I was also quick to point out that, if you had a flat sewer on Parkside, discharging a force main to it might actually help because you would get a flushing action with the higher flow from the periodic discharge from the force main. That could improve that condition. But again, a lot of it then depends on, is it a 4-inch or is it a 6-inch? Because 6-inch might be a little more flow than what would be good for it.
What I'm meaning is there the capacity on those lines, wherever you're tying into, right?
Yep.
It's a whole other.
Yeah, and then how far back they're gonna make us trace back for the capacity, so. I just don't know if there's gonna be ancillary improvements outside of just our pump station, our gravity main and force main. Are they gonna ask us to make improvements to, existing county sewer lines or not?
Do you have an estimated cost of what it could potentially for all of that, even if you have to do all that?
No, we do not have that. I was just trying to get some definition from county. So we could start figuring out what we needed to actually figure out. So it was really just, if we feel that we're good with these and we can move forward, or if we need to account for more development, Doug, I guess that's, with you.
Well, not in the form-based code, because just looking at our form-based code map that the town board will start to consider on Monday night versus this, none of the properties with the exception of that one are actually in the form-based code. So I don't think that piece of it is necessarily an issue now. In terms of, and Gary, this goes back to our constant conversation with the ag committee. I mean, the development pressure that it would put on at least 3 or 4 currently agriculture operation farm fields is significant. That it would then provide an opportunity to turn those agriculture operations into development. Now, on the plus side, generally we call the Paddleford Brook Greenway Emerson Road, so it's south of that. Whether or not it's in the strategic farmland protection area, I don't know without looking at the specific map. My guess is it's actually not.
Yeah, this lot would be out, like they would have to, that one lot here on Sand Hill, they're clearly out. The only one that I think might be, will be this one here. This one isn't farm, right? Isn't this wetland?
Yeah, one's a wetland and one's farm, so this one here is.
This one's farm, right?
This one's
yeah.
wetland. And that
Most
one's
of
This one is out
Yeah.
inside the red line entirely. I think this one's farm, but I think this one's more wetland.
Yeah, and then this one is farm too, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
farmed, and then you can actually see this is farmed.
That was farm, yeah.
Yeah,
So you got 3, and then this is what,
alright, but this one's also outside the red line entirely.
I think actually all 3 of these, to be honest, are outside the strategic farmland protection area. They're all definitely outside the Paddleford Greenway. And I know that that's, the ag committee hates to see a loss of farmland, but we've generally said we're gonna try to protect farmland in the strategic farmland protection area. I mean, so that's ultimately a town board
Well,
decision.
the Uptown project itself, That's gonna put pressure on the whole area.
Well,
I mean,
but
that's-
obviously if there's sewer available to the parcel, it makes it
Well,
significantly easier.
Yeah,
Anyways, the point of this was, I wanted to make sure you guys are okay with it before I send anything back to the county. So, and like I said, do we wanna tell them that we could have more development, or am I telling them that there's too much development? You know, that I'm looking for the Goldilocks,
I think you have to base it on the zoning, Greg, and it's outside the form-based codes, so it's not like,
right?
no, that's reality,
Yeah,
it could
that's-
happen, so,
right.
I mean, they know that,
Exactly,
they just want you to do the work to tell them how many,
right.
that's the.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I can take this, I can go back to the county, so they're aware of it, and then we'll continue the conversations with the county, and then hopefully they're gonna give me, basically, this is what we're gonna expect. That way we can readjust the numbers, now obviously, PVC pipe pricing and pumps and everything are just, everything's pretty wacky right now.
well, we won't be taking it on this fall, so,
Yeah, it's just, a few years down the road kind of
Yeah.
scenario.
really, it'd probably be even higher.
Did you say you wanted a project?
So the initial was 90 homes roughly, in the initial one we started with. And we're
Yes.
adding 231 dwelling units, is that?
Well, you're not adding the units, you're just,
Expand potential.
they ask for what's your existing and then what's your future.
Okay.
So the future is kind of like, it's this
Yeah.
nebulous thing out here, like, what could happen here? They want to make sure the pump station is designed to handle whatever that development might be. Now, obviously, the town can move the goalpost pretty easily by saying, oh, we're gonna, this is our TDR area or, whatever.
well, honestly, even with the conservation subdivision, you're probably not gonna be able to get to 231 units.
That's my point. That's what I
Right.
told Terry's. I think this is actually, is being conservative. But I just wanted to make sure that if you guys are comfortable that'll be the narrative going back to the town.
Just based on the underlying code now, or the zoning district limits now, so, yeah, do it.
Okay. And then once I hear back from them, like you said, we can continue the conversation.
Okay,
I'm just trying to, get as much definition before we can say, okay, here's when we can finally make a decision.
okay,
I do want to say Tim McGowan's been good. He's been very responsive.
So let me just ask this while we're talking about this. How do we, inside of this proposed district, inside this red line that you're showing, you're on the north side of Emerson there, which is technically encroaching into the Paddleford Brook Greenway. How do we limit, like that farm field on the north side, the development pressure? How do we, for instance, those two?
They're drawn out. I mean, they don't have legal access.
But it's right there, out of district user, right?
Right, but they can't create a town district without you saying yes.
But how do we minimize the development pressure?
you tell them no.
Right.
Can we write that into the district creation or something?
Well, the pump station is gonna be designed for this, right? So if someone is gonna do another sewer district for develop another parcel beyond one, they've gotta create a sewer district that the town has to say okay to. Secondly, they would have to make improvements to our pump station as part of this district to convey their flow through. So it's not an easy thing for them to do.
But
But
here's what
possible.
happens down the road. Think 10 years from now.
Yep.
The town doesn't operate this, the county does.
Right.
So they go to the county and the county's like, sure, no problem. Where's the town get the,
Well, the intent was though, to make this a town district. Well, I guess you'd say it would be 30 years down the road or whatever, how long we'd have it, but was to have it be a town district and then have the county operate and maintain it. But it would still be a town district. So an extension to a town district would come to the town, not from the county.
so I think we need to be clear about the language in the district formation.
Absolutely.
How many town districts do we have related to sewer?
This would be the first one.
I was gonna say, it would be first.
That's the first one.
Well.
So the county could go and create
But
a district and expand it on their own volition, unless we create this town district, which would be unique.
Right. I mean, eventually, once the debt would roll off, I think the idea was that then, you know, we'd have the county take over the district in formality, because the whole point of having the town district was basically deal with the debt service side of things.
But I mean, we kind of have that with the Purdy Road. I mean, because we administer the debt service for that. of 18,000.
Correct, yeah,
Right.
it'd be very similar, where, but Farmington operates and
They do
maintains
the
that.
operations and maintenance of it.
Yep.
I don't know that we were clear with the district formation language on that, because we keep running into little bumps with that, but.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think the intent though would be is that, you know, when we create this is, you know, we can write that into the district formation that we're not looking for any development north of our red line that we have here. Grading drops off in this triangle area to the north, to the east, and to the west. So it's its own little island, so it kind of precludes you from bringing more flow to this without adding another pump station. Adding another pump station for only a few lots is not going to be economically feasible.
Sorry, I was asking a lot of questions.
No, it's totally fine.
Good question.
Okay, moving on. This one shouldn't take long, water project
Like that
update.
trash, sewer, now we water.
Good water here.
Yeah,
Do it all.
The PRVs are all installed. Just wait for
good.
Roswell or whoever. Howard's
Next week.
next week? No, week after. Week after, the week of the 22nd to set out the parameters on all the vaults. Once they are done, then from there we will then place our hydrant monitors on certain hydrants in the upland side of our gradient of our water district to see what it does throughout the system, including at the PRVs. We start doing 5-foot increments with our tanks to see how things go. But overall, the project, other than some minor punch list items,
So the EC is basically ready,
Yeah.
they're punched out,
Yeah.
they're ready to go. I think it's basically just an arc flash thing,
Right.
which I think is, RG&E is actually the one.
RG's hold that up.
The HVAC, Crosby, they are done.
Yep.
So it really it's just some minor items with the GC.
Right.
So it's just the remaining punch list there, but I'm hoping that we can get them for final payment. I would say hopefully maybe this month, and the worst case next month.
Next month, right?
But the other two contractors should be ready to go.
Right.
So,
So other than that, I mean, you know, it's basically done.
Done.
I mean, things
Yeah.
are
The
operating.
original project itself, I mean, PRVs were.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
The project itself is, we paved the, going up to
we paved that this week,
this week.
got that done.
All the Trimble stuff is here.
All the Trimble stuff is here, so we're gonna deploy that in September. Well, the hydrant stuff we're gonna do first, then we'll get the rest of it on the monitors, on the rest of the PRVs, so.
PRVs are in, physically in, but they're not operational at this point.
No, we're just, Ross has come out and put in pressure sustaining pilots into our PRVs, so like when the thing opens, it doesn't dump the pressure throughout the system, it's gonna hold pressure back.
Yeah, they're set to hold like about 80 pounds on the upstream side of the valve. So if there is, say, a catastrophic failure on the low end, we don't drain everything
To the low
to the low end. It would still keep the parts outside of that West Street zone still pressurized.
correct. So that'll be done, like I said, that next week, the week after, and then some restoration here and there, and some minor stuff, but
Yeah, we're just trying to finish up the as-builts, so I'm probably gonna send Dave up probably next week to pick up shots on for grading, because the grading was, you know, modified up at the tank site.
takes a
Yeah. So actually, I mean, to give you actual record drawings, the stuff from the GC, so I mean, I've got their information, but they didn't obviously give us the grading.
So when's the ribbon cutting?
I don't know. Talk about that, maybe the fall, we'll do something, so.
Samples of water?
We gotta get the,
Water.
do have to get the building signed, I think that's the last
Yeah,
little
it's
piece of
last
thing,
thing, yeah.
so.
Okay.
Terry and I had a meeting yesterday with the Cheshire Fire Department, they were appreciative of the extra water pressure. So,
Oh, whereabouts was that at?
we had a meeting.
Oh, okay.
Talking about contracts for the.
Oh, okay.
Both,
Yeah.
both Cheshire and
Yeah.
city. ARPA funding. I did, well, we have this $1.15 million, we got a 1.15.
I was gonna say, is it,
1.15.
yeah, but like, six statements are already
One five.
1.85. I was like, where'd the extra 400
No,
come
no,
from?
I'm tossing them some bucks.
Printing is all money.
We need to find a home for it, and there's a very limited number of areas where it can be utilized, so. We had a finance committee meeting yesterday morning, and this was one of the topics, what are we gonna do with the money? And we had talked before about, we briefly in the town board, perhaps using the money to take another look at the sewer projects that we haven't been able to take on because the cost was beyond what people's ability to pay was, so. Cheshire and Grandview Park, and I asked Greg yesterday, plenty of notice, I thought, to take a look at what impact would an extra $1 million have on that Cheshire project? How much would that, not to the penny, but just, is that someplace where we could utilize it? Finance committee is meeting again next Thursday, and wanted to know, is this something, wanted like a list of where we could utilize that money, what's the best utilization of that money, so.
Cheshire, what was getting us even into the remote league, to be able to have the discussion of doing
Yeah.
sewer was a CDBG grant.
We're talking about milk.
Well, I know, but our income survey is gone. We've lost our timing on our income
That's
survey,
the
so you'd have to do it again. Yeah,
I'll have to redo it.
right. So you gotta start that process over again.
Probably
But
wouldn't change much, though.
I doubt it.
no, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
steps,
Yeah,
right? There's
yeah.
steps that we have to go through to get to that point. But if we can get, say, if we had a CDBG grant, I think the last time we had looked at the district, it was basically, we're looking for like maybe another $500,000 to bring affordability, something into range. Is what we were looking for at that point in time. Now, again, pipe pricing is going crazy,
Yeah.
so, quite honestly, I don't even know how to estimate things. We were just talking, and I'm like, I don't even know the town anymore because pipe pricing is like $33 a foot on water main. That we were buying for $9 a foot for a year ago.
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to do. The other side of it is even with throwing this money at it, doesn't necessarily mean people in Cheshire would say, yeah, we're willing to pay that.
Right.
One of the issues we have is that there's a timing component to the use of that money. What, by the end of October, we have to identify places where we could use it. They don't hold our feet to the fire and say, can only use it there. But we have to provide a plan on how the money is gonna be used. Then the money has to be spent by what, the end of 2024 or 2026?
The project has to be done by the end of 26, and the money has to be committed by the end of 24.
24. So if this is something that looked based on, standing 10 feet back and throwing it at the hurt.
Right.
I guess
It was gonna be about what, $1,800 a year to the people in Cheshire, wasn't it?
I think you were like.
About $1.50 a month.
Yeah, something.
Right.
Well,
Well,
yeah, you want, what I remember is a lot of them did not like even $1,000 a year. They
Right.
wanted to be $500 a year. I don't know if we'll ever get there.
I think that what I had in my notes, and I went back and looked at the notes at the finance meeting, is we had said, what if we got to 100? And they said, we'd really like you to try to get to like $50 a
Right.
month, like $600 a year debt service for the average. That might be tough.
Well, yeah, but that's the question. Based on, then the only thing you could do is to take that original estimate,
Right.
knowing the prices are different now. What effect would $1.15 million have
Yeah,
on that?
yeah, it's not a problem.
And, you know, I
Or-
think,
Grandview Park.
Well, Grandview
Yes.
Park is a smaller nut, so,
Yeah.
you know, like 1.1 million there would obviously solve a lot for those guys.
But that was, there wasn't just the money issue there, it was the county also.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's a,
Well, but isn't there also the whole issue with the VA there, right? I know the most recent conversation
Yep.
I had, they're talking about coming
VA is
down.
going to the city.
Right, and so, and I had specifically asked, can we tie in as part of that, so we don't have to do it all on our own?
are they gonna do gravity to the city? Or are they gonna come out of the manhole that goes through our water treatment plant and then to Cairo?
I haven't seen plans, but I'd like to know that. I mean, are they gonna, yeah, are they gonna bring the flow down Bushwood down to their station, then go to
Yeah.
the pump station and then come across, or are they gonna try to find a way to gravity route it down 21?
I think it might be helpful, though, the conversation I had about the whole thing was with Tim McGillia.
Okay.
And the last conversation, I believe he told me they were coming down 21,
So then grab it.
That'd be deep.
Well, when I talked to the city man, Abrams, is there a guy by the name of
Yeah,
Abrams,
he's retired.
3 or 4 years ago, he indicated you could have a pump station there and pump it right into the line on Gorham Street.
Right,
right, yeah.
yeah.
But
So,
since then, the VA is now, that's a recent development, just within the last, what, half a year or whatever. The VA's gotta do something different than abandon their plan.
so that, what I was gonna say is if we're gonna put our efforts towards Cheshire and we have another discussion with the residents, like, look, how many here can do 1,000 if they balk at it and we can't do it for 1,000? Do we put it to a vote to those people who will get affected? And say, okay, look, there's your opportunity. This money's here. You have like 1,000, we're gonna put it to a vote. If enough people say yes, then we're moving forward. If not, we're going somewhere else. Cause like, I don't wanna see us spend a lot of time
yeah. It's-
with design and stuff, and then they go, we still don't want, cause we didn't wanna pay that much.
Right.
Um,
Well, you wouldn't jump into design. It would really just be,
Yeah.
it'd be the map plan report phase. You know,
okay,
you want to skip the map. And I agree with you. You don't want to spend a bunch of money doing the map plan report and all the stuff that the county wants you to do. Pre-design, because they will have their own requirements. You get IFA. There's a lot of little pieces here that they go along with it. But I agree with you. You want to figure that out and avoid that expense if they're not going to be in.
are we getting rid of their septic tanks? Are we not? Are we tying in? Are we
Right.
not? Was this split it by 24, you said?
No, we have, the project has to be complete by the end of 26.
Okay.
I mean, I would think with
Yeah.
$1 million sewer would go like that, right? So we'll
Yeah.
spend a little bit for
Right.
it, but
Yeah, absolutely.
We're dealing with the state, we're on the
The
easements.
thing is, that $1 million might not make much difference with what Greg's saying about the increase in prices.
for sure.
Oh, yeah,
Well, for right now,
yeah.
yeah, definitely right now.
The big unknown is whatever number you put out there, right now, we don't know what those people would say.
Right.
They, they try to, maybe 300 a year. Yeah, I mean, trying to identify a project in the next, 2 months and say, this is, I know you can change the plan, but
But you know, one of the things maybe what we wanna do is, just let me throw this idea out there, if Greg can get us some updated cost numbers.
Yeah.
We can, and then making an assumption, we would have this million plus the CDBG money. We could estimate what the debt service payment was, we could talk about that finance, and then maybe what we do is send a little survey out to all of, I think there were 74 units in that, Greg, I think, if I remember correctly. We send a letter with a little survey out to them and see
Yeah. gauge their
what everybody
interest
says.
level.
Yeah.
Was there any discussion at the finance committee meeting, and I'm not sure if this qualifies, but that ACP water main that needs to be replaced, does that qualify as something the money could be used for if the sewer projects don't work out? Is there
I mean,
any
it wasn't
discussion?
discussed, but it would qualify, any of the
Sure.
water stuff would
Water and
qualify.
sewer are two of the,
Yeah, nothing highway that we could
Yeah.
fund.
The one I saw water sewer broadband for the
Water meters were something like you can get smart meters like we've been using, but
Plus all the stormwater stuff
Stormwater
also
stuff too.
includes all that.
The broadband
I think-
county is supposed to be doing something in the broadband area, so with their ARPA money, so.
I just know that's something this committee has mentioned a couple times, is that ACP pipe that needs to be
Yeah,
replaced.
well, we talked about, what, 2% a year or something like that going forward?
you know, I actually just sent Greg a rough estimate of AC miles that we have and,
Right.
you know, just to kind of start coming up with a discussion. So it's a lot.
Is there any idea what the infrastructure bill will result in?
I have
That's
no
what I'm
idea.
wondering. I'm hoping that those roads.
As we say, who knows right
Roads,
now?
bridges also,
Because
because
you can't qualify something for this money in infrastructure. I know it's not in the bank yet, but
Yeah, but having the project ready to go.
I just hope it's not like the money like we thought we're getting here, like, hey, here's some money, and all of a sudden, oh, by the way, you go low enough, you really can do it.
Right.
That's
Never gets
what
out.
will happen though, I mean.
it
it's
never
gonna
gets to
be
the town.
And that, yeah,
The
exactly,
state
like,
gets
Yeah.
some, the county gets some, and, oh, there's a
People
couple
keep
pennies here
Taking
for you.
chunks out
I-
along the way.
That there is an expectation when I talk with Dwight from EFC is that that infrastructure money is going to find its way to the WIA money. Is where that they anticipate, or at least they're anticipating a chunk, right? I don't know if it 100% goes to them. Maybe some goes to RD as well. Who knows? But they are. I think they have not released the guidance on the WIA on purpose because they're waiting for this infrastructure bill to make its way through, so they know exactly how much money they have. So I don't know, maybe they make changes to the WIA. You know, personally, I'm hoping that the WIA grant goes from 25% on the clean water side to back up to 50%. You know, it would be similar to the drinking water side. But
I know that it would sound fun to, and kind of splashy, we throw $1 million at Cheshire Sewer and do that, but let me just remind you too, we had what, 250,000 in stormwater related for Seneca Point Road that otherwise is gonna hit the general highway fund anyway, that we have $577,000 sitting there that we've received, that 250 could go towards that to fix that, so.
Yeah, well, if we could get an idea from you in the next few days.
Yep.
When's the meeting, Thursday, by Wednesday,
yeah,
just what impact would it have based on what we know now now?
right. Yeah,
For both
I'm
of
not gonna
those.
change the construction estimates. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah.
It's just that honestly, there's a lot of volatility, but we can basically look at bottom numbers and really just look at, okay, if we were financing this amount versus this amount versus this amount, this is what your annual sewer cost would be per unit.
Sounds good. Enough on that, this one is easy, number 5, signage on Wells Curtis Road, County Road 16, indicating no trucks, because of that no truck thing we had. That's out anyway,
Yes.
can't do it.
Oh, we don't control the intersection.
Yeah, we don't,
The
it's
county
county,
does.
so.
Okay. And two, if you had no trucks, there's nothing that prevents you from doing local delivery. So you can post LA one, you can still drive up and down the road with a dump truck.
I think the same person that asked for the sign also was the same person that said it was a big fuel spill, which obviously wasn't, it was milk, so.
Okay, the only other item really was, we were asked to take a look at was the landscaping plan for Motion Junction, which our tree committee had chimed in on that early this week. Chuck had sent their notes on what they recommended, and that's been sent on to Mike Bentley and to that group, so, they know more about trees than I do. I mean, they're
Well,
tall
I
things
just
with
want to make
leaves
sure
on it,
this
you know.
committee saw, because you've been involved more with Outhouse Park than the planning board has. I know you're involved with the layout.
But they're really the ones driving the whole, that group is driving
They're still 200 short on,
200,000.
200,000 short on the basic things, not even including the building or getting into the landscaping and that sort of stuff. So I think the pavilion truthfully is a 22-23 project. And then the landscaping associated with all that and everything. I mean, there's probably some time on this.
I looked at the compass, I didn't, nothing, I was like, nothing crazy there, but they were all fine, really.
I noticed, just an aside, thing on the news last night that,
Greece.
I think it was in Greece, they opened
Greece,
an
yeah.
inclusive playground.
But it's
It's
only
not-
like 2 units. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
2
really
pieces of
small.
equipment.
Yeah,
When
it's
they
not
need
as
it.
comprehensive.
And it's not the whole playground.
No.
It's like 2 pieces that were added to an existing playground. And they have that same thing like in North Carolina and Texas. It's like a piece here and a piece there that have been added to an existing playground. This will be the first full playground and the first universal design.
Hopefully they come up with the rest of the money to finish the thing out in the next year or so.
That'd be great.
When are they gonna start building?
Thinking the tractor trailers are coming late
Next
next
week or-
week, and the week of the 22nd, I think they start
Yeah, that's
constructing.
I think Monday the 23rd is the start of the
Okay.
build date, I believe. So,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Genesee Valley's on there working.
yeah, we've got, across the road, and he's going towards the building now. Really nice job.
He's super easy going.
Yeah, his Carl was
I
great.
mean,
to work with.
it's a
It was
breath of
him
fresh
and
air
his
for
son
talking
are-
to contractors.
And his son were good to work with,
Yeah.
so.
I'm still trying to get the easement out of German Brothers too. For,
If they start building, then they'll show up.
I haven't forgotten about it, neither have they, but.
Yeah, for Auburn Trail. Yeah, like I said, I'm waiting for that one, and I know you've been busy, so I wasn't gonna like,
No,
hey,
I've
I'll
been-
just come
I'm
along.
gonna hammer it, and I know that, I don't know if Adeline's still on or not, but the Parks and Rec committee has been saying, hey, when's the Auburn Trail? I'm like, I'm trying to get this easement.
Easement, and the airport easement.
Yeah.
It'll be the day before the second coming, you know?
I reached out to Zach actually, a couple weeks ago,
Okay.
just looking for an update. He had, yeah, from Farland Johnson. They said he didn't have anything new for us yet. So I don't know how long this process is gonna take, but I'll obviously reach out to him again.
Somebody had CC'd about these zoning layouts for this committee to review too.
What?
I forget who sent these, but somebody sent them over. Let's see.
No, that's.
Oh,
that-
you
that's the
sent
stuff.
it, that's
That's
this.
the kind of-
Yep.
Okay.
We're good.
I didn't think I had those documents, but that's what those are. Okay.
So we're done recording.
So I see on Monday night's agenda, you have the DAC, the advisory committee being consolidated into public works.
Yeah.
I will send a note to the 2 resident members of that committee and thanking them for their service. Let them know why we're doing what we're doing. So, okay. Good.
We should add that to the resolution, maybe, thank you.
Nacho farm, where they put those trees in. It's pretty close to this water line.
No, or actually it's outside the water main and right away, but it's in RG&E's